guys, and I am Tausif, and with me are the usual suspects Ali and Mariam completing the trio. And today we are discussing climate change और उसका impact है जो globally और especially Pakistan और the rest of the global south उस पे जो impact है उसका. Um, it's a loaded subject जिसके ऊपर कॉन्वर्सेशन जो है वो काफ़ी पोलराइज्ड है. uh, I, I believe there is the science is pretty strong behind it, but still social media and other tools are used to politicize and उसकी लाइक डिफरेंट अंडरस्टैंडिंग्स हैं लोगों के बीच में कुछ मिसअंडरस्टैंडिंग्स हैं. um, हम अपने सर्कल में जब भी कम्युनिकेट करते हैं उसके ऊपर वी गेट टू सी डिफरेंट काइंड्स ऑफ ओपिनियंस और डिफरेंट तरह की कन्फ्यूजन्स भी हैं लोगों के माइंड में. तो वी विल ट्राई टू अनपैक एज मच ऑफ इट एज वी कैन एंड at least I would say for me that we should be as responsible as we can be because it is in my opinion, a very, very serious subject. Okay, so opening the conversation, I'll probably start with Ali that हमारी जो क्लाइमेट को लेके अंडरस्टैंडिंग है कि हमारे पास पीछे मिलियंस ऑफ ईयर्स का ट्रैक है जहाँ पे क्लाइमेट ओवर द टाइम चेंज होता आया है. तो इस वक्त डिफरेंट क्या है और in what ways is it more serious than it has been in the past? So please, Ali, go ahead.
Okay, yeah, thank you. I think जैसे आपने like as you opened के ये mostly even in conversation people ask loaded questions like oh why do you think climate like why governments or people are so cautious about climate yeah even like when governments are trying to impose tax carbon tax or like same measurements ताकि climate को बचाया जा सकते. तो काफ़ी पोलराइज़ है, उसकी एक मेजर रीज़न जो मेरी समझ में आती है वो ये है कि एक बड़ा आर्गुमेंट है कि लाइक ओवर द 4.5 बिलियन ईयर्स क्लाइमेट तो चेंज होती रही है, तो व्हाट्स डिफरेंट नाउ? व्हाट्स अनप्रेसिडेंटेड लाइक व्हाई वी हैव टू एक्ट डिफरेंट नाउ? हम ह्यूमन शुरू से फॉसिल फ्यूल्स यूज़ करते आए हैं, कार्बन फुटप्रिंट हमेशा से रहा है, थोड़ा रहा बट आई थिंक उसमें अगर आप और ये आंसर देखना बड़ा सिंपल नहीं है लाइक इवन इफ यू गो टू like Google or other social other search engines right now if you try to find के is it तो so the major question is it man made क्योंकि अगर तो man made है तो हम कुछ कर सकते हैं अगर human made है तो हम कुछ कर सकते हैं अगर ये anthropogenic नहीं है तो then maybe it's just a phenomena. So the very important question is कि क्या ये हमने कॉज की है फिर उसके ऊपर information इतनी easy नहीं है direct नहीं है even if you go to right now if you go to Google chat GPT ask for yourself you will see a lot of text but not a very direct answer और उसकी उसकी multiple reasons हो सकती हैं लेकिन I will try to explain कि जो मेरे मुझे मुझे समझ आई है अभी तक कि अब क्लाइमेट चेंज जो हो रही है जिसको साथ लोग ग्लोबल वार्मिंग एसोसिएट करते हैं तो ओवर द ईयर क्लाइमेट चेंज हुई है बट अभी जो कुछ सालों से हो रही है वो बहुत अनप्रेसिडेंट है उसमें क्या हो रहा है कि जो आपके टेम्परेचर राइज हो रहे हैं वो बड़े रैपिडली हो रहे हैं लाइक सिंस 1800 लाइक 2014 वाज द हॉटेस्ट ईयर और ये 1.45 एंड अनटिल 2 सेंटीग्रेड ये हर साल टेम्परेचर इस तरह से बढ़ता जा रहा है तो अब साइंटिस्ट वरीड हैं कि इसका टिपिंग पॉइंट होगा ये टेम्परेचर कहाँ तक बढ़ेंगे क्योंकि जो पूरी दुनिया आपकी चल रही है उसका उसका एक बड़ा बेसिक सा कॉन्सेप्ट है हीट जो ट्रांसफर होती है वो वेदर चेंजेस लेके आती है फिर आपके मतलब एक इक्विलिब्रियम चल रहा था जिसको हम डिस्टर्ब कर रहे हैं वो क्या रहा था लाइक एज वी ऑल नो कि हीट का एक सोर्स है एक सिंक है तो वहां से वो ट्रांसफर करती है आपके नॉर्दर्न हेमिस्फायर, साउदर्न हेमिस्फायर, वो फिर क्लाइमेट एक अपना पैटर्न बना के चलती थी। फिर मदर अर्थ की एक एक बफर ज़ोन थी जिसमें वो किसी एक हद तक क्लाइमेट को, मतलब कार्बन एमिशन या इस तरह की चीज़ों को ऑब्ज़ॉर्ब कर सकती थी। लेकिन अब वो ब्रेक होना शुरू हो गया। अब उसमें क्रैक नज़र आने शुरू हो गए हैं। क्रैक ऐसे नज़र आने शुरू हो गए हैं कि अगर आप देखें कि हमारा मतलब कार्बन किस तरह से बढ़ रही है। जब कार्बन बढ़ती है, अच्छा, कार्बन की एक प्रॉपर्टी है कि वो लाइट और हीट को ऑब्ज़ॉर्ब करती है, उसकी वजह से टेम्परेचर इंक्रीज़ करते जाते हैं। अब वो, जैसे पहले से कहा, टेम्परेचर इंक्रीज़ होंगे, उसके साथ एसोसिएटेड प्रॉब्लम्स हैं। ओशियंस कुछ हद तक उस कार्बन को ऑब्ज़ॉर्ब करते हैं, तो ओशियंस की एसिडिफिकेशन हो रही है, उसके अंदर जो पूरी मरीन लाइफ है वो डिस्टर्ब हो रही है। तो उसकी वजह से जो आपका ग्लेशियर सरफेस है वो थिन हो रही है। तो ओवरऑल, लाइक, इट्स अ वेरी ब्रॉड टॉपिक एज यू सेड, बट अगर आप इन सब चीज़ों को ट्रैक करें तो यू कैन वेरी क्लियरली सी अ पैटर्न कि जैसे ओवर द फ्यू इयर्स ये बढ़ता जा रहा है, बढ़ता जा रहा है, बढ़ता जा रहा है, और उसके साथ रैपिड ह्यूमन डेवलपमेंट, ह्यूमन, लाइक, हम फॉसिल फ्यूल कैसे यूज़ कर रहे हैं, हमारी नेचुरल गैस, और इसको हमने किस तरह पिछले स्पेशली 101 साल में कैसे बेदरेगी के साथ, मतलब हमने बिल्कुल क्लाइमेट डिफॉरेस्टेशन, लाइक वन ऑफ द बिगेस्ट, लाइक अमेज़न रेन फॉरेस्ट, उनको आपने मीट प्रोडक्शन के लिए, तो वो एक बहुत बड़ा आपका सिंक था जो आपने खत्म कर दिया। तो आई थिंक दिस इज़ प्रीटी मच समरी इन माय माइंड कि ये सारी चीज़ें लाइक रॉकेट साइंस नहीं है। छोटे-छोटे उनके पीछे फिज़िकल फिनोमेनॉन्स हैं, और जिसमें समझ आती है कि दिस इज़ दिस इज़ क्वाइट ऑब्वियस दैट इट्स अ ह्यूमन मेड फिनोमेना, and blessing in disguise is if it's a human made phenomenon, maybe we can do something to control or slow it down.
ओके, सो वी विल कम बैक टू इट कि लाइक इसको किस तरह से कॉम्बैट किया जा सकता है या किया जा भी सकता है कि नहीं. So Mariam, I would like you to expand on the same thing. So what, in your understanding and in your findings, has it been, or how does it connect with the history of it?
So, I guess back in like 1900s, there were a few scientists who started to experiment around how, if the environment is being impacted by humans' activities, and if the temperature has been raised over the years. And बड़ी immature सी calculation थी जिसमें he went over through the weather data, and the weather data was collected through weather stations, and वो बड़ी manually with a hand that calculation was done. But even right now, it's very close to the accurate numbers. So that was the first time that it was being talked about, लेकिन वो इस तरह से receive नहीं हो रही कि it is a big thing. And the reason being क्योंकि इतना obvious effects नहीं थे, इतनी obvious weather changes नहीं थी, though a lot of the colonizations that have happened during 1900s was because of one of the major reason was the weather. Um, and they were trying to seek places which are warmer, which are more fertile, and that has a lot to do with the climate. And when you look at climate, as Ali have talked about, कि हम एक बैलेंस्ड इन्वायरमेंट था अर्थ का, जिसमें आपकी एक सोलर एनर्जी आ रही है, एंड देन जो आपकी एनर्जी है, देयर इज एन आउटवर्ड फ्लो ऑफ इट, एंड वी हैड अ बजट फॉर इट. And then we started emitting a lot of carbon. There's a lot of carbon emission, और वो आपके पास pre-industrial area, industrial era and post-industrial era, उसमें बहुत changes आए. आपके coal and oil and gas की emission बहुत ज़्यादा हुई. If you go through the coal mines in Balstan, if you just pass by there, you could feel that it's more heated, those areas. हमारा तो बचपन का रूट था कोटा से भी जाने का, and much में काफी ज़्यादा coal mines है. So you could feel how, like, even those areas which are supposed to be really cold, like much is not a warm place, you could feel how hot it could be if you're even doing mining and you're like burning it for the consumption of energy. तो उससे ये हुआ कि आपकी ग्रीन हाउस एमिशन क्रिएट होना स्टार्ट होगी, विच क्रिएटेड एन इको चैम्बर। आपके पास एक चैम्बर क्रिएट हो गया, अब आपकी सारी गैसेस अंदर ट्रैप हैं, और आपके पास ऑलमोस्ट 91% ऑफ दीज एनर्जीज आर एक्यूमुलेटेड इन योर सी, विच आपके पास दो चीजें जो आपको के एनवायरनमेंट को मैनेज कर रही थी, एक थे आपके फॉरेस्ट और दूसरा है आपका सी, विच इज बेसिकली द मेजर सोर्स ऑफ कीपिंग दिस बैलेंस। अब वही जो है आपके पास एक्यूमुलेट कर रहे हैं इस एनर्जी को। उससे हो ये रहा है कि आपके पास ग्लोबल वार्मिंग इज एन इफेक्ट ऑफ अ क्लाइमेट चेंज। आपके पास जो है ना टेम्परेचर तो इंक्रीज हो रहा है, और वो हम देख भी रहे हैं, बट उसकी वजह से आपके ओवरऑल जो टेम्परेचर है आपके पास बारिशें हैं, हीट वेव्स हैं, फ्लडिंग है, उस पर बहुत मेजर इम्पैक्ट आता है। अब उसमें जो there are different simulation. As Ali said, there wasn't a straightforward way of saying that, oh, it's humanly done. It's because आपके पास a lot of this data has been come into sight in last couple of years when it hit us that, oh, something is going bad. जब आपके पास साइंटिस्ट इन बोथ हेमिस्फीयर started realizing कि कितनी ज्यादा आपके पास स्नो शीट्स क्रैक हो रही हैं, so what ended up happening is that they started collecting this data set, they started digging a hole through the earth, and they started getting these fossils where you would have like 1800 like 800,000 years old uh, fossils where you could see the pieces of earth which could tell you कि earth से इतने साल पहले temperature कितना था, and you realize that currently हम जिस स्पीड से टेम्परेचर जा रहा है वो स्पीड जो है last 100 years में ज्यादा हुई है as compared to the whole trajectory of it. And as Ali talked about deforestation, in terms of deforestation, in 1/3 of the forest we have lost, and half of that has been lost since 1950s. So हमने अपनी ऑक्सीजन जो क्रिएट करी थी वो चीज ऑलमोस्ट खत्म करना शुरू कर दी है. That's a huge problem, and there are data from 2021, a report for all climate for all, which shows how much this like impact of human has changed, like have affected the environment. So that and I think there are certain steps being taken over the world. We know very well the ozone layer, the conference that happened to help ozone layer, and then we end up fixing it. So I think I feel like I want to be as positive as Ali is saying, because if it is human made, we have a possibility of combating it and fixing it. So yeah, that's how I feel about it.
All right, awesome. Yeah, so a few things came up that I will probably like to address, which you can also add an explanation to if you want. But I think एक सवाल जो मैंने बहुत ज़्यादा सुना है is ये जो टेम्परेचर्स के हवाले से होता है कि जो एवरेज टेम्परेचर्स हैं वो इतना इंक्रीज कर गए हैं या इतने डिग्रीज इंक्रीज कर गए हैं. आई थिंक उसमें एक कन्फ्यूजन है बिकॉज जो पब्लिक है ना वो लार्जली उसको देख रही होती है. मतलब जब बात होती है ना कि ग्लोबल एवरेज टेम्परेचर जो है वो इंक्रीज जो है वो 3 डिग्रीज को टच कर जाएगा, तो लोग सोच रहे होते हैं प्रॉब्ली कि लाहौर में अगर 45 डिग्री होता था तो 48 डिग्री हो जाएगा. तो इट्स नॉट दैट. वो जो ग्लोबल टेम्परेचर्स की बात हो रही होती है वो ग्लोबल एवरेज होती है. आपने डिफरेंट
Yeah.
लोकेशंस पे उसको वेदर स्टेशंस और डिफरेंट सोर्सेज से लिया हुआ है और आप उसको एवरेज आउट करते हो. और वो जो ग्राफ है विच आई विल पुट अप, जो हम देखते हैं कि 1850 से शुरू होता है और ऑनवर्ड्स और रीसेंट उसके अंदर जो हमें लाइक वो
Spike है.
इज गोइंग अप एंड इनटू द राइट,
Hmm.
उसका स्पाइक हमें रीसेंट टाइम्स में नज़र आता है जो कि
Hmm.
एग्जैक्टली अलाइन करता है हमारा फॉसिल फ्यूल्स के साथ. दूसरा एक जो क्वेश्चन बहुत ज़्यादा किया जाता है कि हमारे पास 1850s का से ऑनवर्ड रैकेट किस तरह है, तो वो रैकेट इस तरह है कि 1850s के अराउंड ट्रैवल बहुत ज़्यादा शुरू हो चुका हुआ था, सी ट्रैवल, राइट. तो उस टाइम पे जो स्पेशली आज के मुकाबले में उस टाइम पे, क्योंकि जो वेसल्स ट्रांसपोर्ट के लिए यूज़ की जाती थी, दे वर नॉट लाइक वेरी आइडियल। तो उनको उनके लिए और भी क्रिटिकल होता था टू गेज के टेम्परेचर क्या है एंड अ बंच ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन। सो उनके जो लॉग्स हैं पुराने, उन सब के अंदर आपको पता लग जाएगा कि डिफरेंट टाइम्स पे उन्होंने डिफरेंट लोकेशंस पे क्या क्या टेम्परेचर की रीडिंग्स ली हुई हैं। सो दैट्स हाउ वी नो कि 1850 में जो है वो एवरेज टेम्परेचर्स क्या थे और हम उनको आज से कंपेयर कर सकते हैं। Okay, so moving on, ओवर टाइम हमने देखा है कि जब क्लाइमेट की इनिशियली बात होती थी तो डिफरेंट टर्मिनोलॉजी यूज होती थी। ग्लोबल वार्मिंग वाज द वर्ड एट
Hmm.
दैट टाइम, और लेटली हमने देखा है कि वो चेंज हो गया है। सो हाउ डू यू, what is your understanding of why this change has occurred, and what difference does it make in like how we present this thing to the public? um, do you have any read into why this change of word has happened, or is it making an impact? या जब हम इसको ग्लोबल वार्मिंग के तौर पे एड्रेस कर रहे थे तो वहाँ पे क्या कोई इश्यूज थे? I'll probably want Mariam to go first.
So I think, as I talked a little bit before as well, कि global warming is definitely आपके पास एक effect है climate change का, where temperatures are increasing, and as you said, they are global temperatures. While climate is मौसम में आती तब्दीली, जो आपके पास extreme weather conditions हैं, वो उसकी वजह से काफी increase हुई हैं। पहले जो वर्ड ग्लोबल वार्मिंग यूज हो रहा था, आई थिंक उसकी वजह से कुछ उसके प्रोस थे, कुछ उसके कॉन्स थे। और जो उसके प्रोस थे वो ये थे कि जहां पर ऑलरेडी काफी गर्मी होती है, लाइक इफ यू गो टुवर्ड्स द ग्लोबल साउथ व्हिच यूजुअली हैव hotter weather as compared to the global north, तो उधर people could actually understand what global warming is doing. Like आपके पास heat waves और कॉमन होती जा रही थी, आपके पास जो गर्म इलाके थे वो गर्म और ज्यादा गर्म हो गए थे। लाइक आई थिंक पिछले 10 सालों में, 10 से 15 सालों में हमने देखा है कि कराची का टेम्परेचर हैज जम्प्ड टू 60 डिग्रीज, लाइक इट हैज गोज टू 60 डिग्री सेल्सियस, विच इज scary. आप इसी तरह से लास्ट ईयर आई वाज इन इजिप्ट लग्जर, एंड it was recorded at 55 degrees centigrade, and it wasn't even one of the hottest days. Um, so it was easier to understand कि अच्छा ये impact हो रहा है. I come from Quetta. When I was growing up, it was very cold. हम जो है गर्मियों में 25 is maximum. अगर किसी साल 30 हो जाता था तो we would talk about it for days. अब 35 is very normal. It has hit 40 some days. So it was very easy to understand for people and also do something about it. For a layman, it's easier to digest कि अच्छा ये हो रहा है. But what it was also doing is कि it was creating a lot of climate deniers on the global north, because वहाँ temperature उस तरह से affect नहीं हो रहे थे, उतनी तेजी से affect नहीं हो रहे थे। आपके पास people still say that, oh, we still have colder weathers. आपके पास जितनी extreme गर्मियाँ हो रही हैं उतनी ही extreme सर्दियाँ भी हो रही थी। There are still some region जहाँ पर ज्यादा ठंड, अब काफी एक्सट्रीम सर्दी भी पड़ रही है, और कुछ ऐसे एरियाज हैं जहाँ पर ठंड पड़ती ही नहीं थी और वहां पड़ना शुरू हो गई है ठंड। तो आई थिंक there was pros and cons, but I do feel that climate change is a better term to understand कि आपकी overall climate shift हो जाएंगे. Even in last 5-6 years, we have seen how Toronto's temperature has changed. The air you and I came here was very cold air. Like we had snow so quickly. While this year it's October and it's still a good enough weather. Like दो दिन पहले it was 22, 23, and it was a pleasant day. While on the other hand, in Vancouver this year there was not much rain. While it's bit a good rainy place. So yeah, I think for me that I feel like the climate change has been, and what I have seen so far is that people have stopped using them. Alternatively, they started using climate change as a term more.
Right. Okay, so maybe climate change better encompasses जो ग्राउंड पे चीज़ हो रही है, मे बी लोगों से कनेक्ट करने के लिए उसमें आसान है. About the city that we are in, मैं I was discussing with one of the persons who was born here, and उसके मुताबिक अगर 20 साल पीछे हम चले जाएं तो we the kind of the kind of cold, the possibility of snow that we see in November could have happened as early as September. So like 60 days ka roughly 20 years की में उसके accordingly like I don't know like he might have some anecdotal experiences जिसके base पे वो कहे I don't know how big 20 years is in terms of climate change scale, but yeah, it can be used as some form of reference. So, Ali, I would want you to expand on the same thing. What do you think about this difference of terminology?
Okay, it's to be honest, it's very interesting कि कैसे क्लाइमेट चेंज के सिर्फ एक इफेक्ट को पहले हाईलाइट किया गया एंड आई थिंक देयर आर सम रीजन क्योंकि so as Mariam said, and I just wanna like without repeating much, I just wanna maybe like educate a little bit. Okay, climate change or global warming difference क्या है? So let's go to basic. Global warming simply refers to like जो आपकी अर्थ सरफेस का एवरेज टेम्परेचर है वो कितना इंक्रीज हो रहा है ग्लोबली, दुनिया कितनी गर्म होती जा रही है, सिंपली एज दैट. अब क्लाइमेट चेंज के जो इफेक्ट्स हैं वो लिमिटेड नहीं है सिर्फ राइज ऑफ टेम्परेचर में. राइजिंग टेम्परेचर इज वन, and then rising water level, rising ocean acidification, declining ice covers, or more extreme weathers. अब ये डिस्कशन, अब अगला क्वेश्चन कि ये डिस्कशन चेंज कैसे हुई. आई थिंक वन ऑफ द वेरी ऑब्वियस इफेक्ट मे बी 20-30 ईयर अगो वाज के ग्लोबल वार्मिंग हो रही है, दुनिया गर्म हो रही है. और ये सबसे लाइक जैसे आपका जिस्म जब लाइक व्हेन यू आर गोइंग थ्रू अ डिजीज समटाइम्स योर बॉडी हैज फ्यू इंडिकेशन. फॉर एग्जांपल जब आपको बुखार होता है, वन ऑफ द फर्स्ट थिंग यू फील इज लाइक यू आर फीलिंग हॉट. तो अब इसके अंडरलाइंग काजेज और बड़े थे, जैसे बात की है कि क्रैक्स बड़े आ रहे हैं, बट हाउ मेनी टाइम्स वी वुड एक्चुअली गो एंड कंफर्म कि यस वो जो आइस सरफेस है वो थिन हो रही है. ग्लोबल वार्मिंग इज प्रीटी मच क्वाइट इट वाज और इट लाइक क्वाइट अ नोन फिनोमेना था. हर बंदा थोड़ा बहुत फील कर रहा था कि सर्दियां लेट स्टार्ट हो रही हैं. एवरेज मक्का लाइक हॉटेस्ट वन ऑफ द हॉटेस्ट प्लेस, वहां पे 50 प्लस टेम्परेचर जाने शुरू हो गए. बट अगेन इट्स आल्सो वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग अगर आप ग्राफ्स देखें कि मोस्टली क्लाइमेट डिनायर्स कहाँ पे हैं, तो आई थिंक दैट वाजंट हेल्पिंग एज वेल. लाइक द टॉप वंस आर इन इंडोनेशिया, यूएस, सऊदी अरेबिया, इजिप्ट, इंडिया, मेक्सिको, थाईलैंड, ऑस्ट्रेलिया. So like Canada is one of the cold. Iceland is one of the cold. Greenland is one of the coldest place, right? You won't see, and I'm going to like Australia is 14%, right? One of the hottest place in the world. तो आई थिंक दैट वाजंट हेल्पिंग मच क्योंकि लोग मे बी अगेन वही बात होगी, इस चीज़ की अंडरस्टैंडिंग में प्रॉब्लम थी कि ओ लाइक I simply as like I will just maybe I will have to use more air conditioning,
Mm-hmm.
so it's not going to affect me much. आज मुझे याद है आज से कुछ साल पहले पाकिस्तान में डिस्कशन थोड़ी स्टार्ट हुई थी कि we will run out of drinking water. So like some of my friends they used to discuss how can this happen? We have rivers, we have this. Like तो आप like I think it's not a very easy phenomena to understand. तो ग्लोबल वार्मिंग अब एक मेजर इफेक्ट था, बहुत से लोगों को इम्पैक्ट कर रहा था. साइंटिस्ट ने सोचा कि दिस विल बी वेरी गुड हुक फॉर अस टू पीपल be concerned about climate change. But then I think they realize like as they started studying more and as they started collecting more data कि सिर्फ ज़मीन गर्म ही नहीं हो रही, ज़मीन का पूरा जो सिंक सोर्स का फिनोमेना है वो डिस्टर्ब हो गया है, जो आउटर टेम्परेचर्स हैं वो चेंज हो गए हैं. अब उसके साथ अ, अब सिर्फ अगर आप थोड़ा सा इसको ज़मीन मतलब अर्थ से बाहर भी ले जाएं तो आपकी ओजोन लेयर के बाहर जो सरफेस है वो बेसिकली ठंडी होनी शुरू हो गई है. तो
Mm-hmm.
क्या हो रहा है कि आपकी जो कार्बन है उसने वो आपकी ट्रैप हो गई है. अब एज लाइक आई सेड कि वो हीट को ऑब्जॉर्व करती है, तो आपके बेसिकली एक एक साइक्लोन बन गया कि जिसके अंदर हीट, एक तो हम कार्बन मजीद प्रोड्यूस करते जा रहे हैं, दूसरा जो हमारी इंटरनल कंबशन थी, हीट सोर्स था, वो इंटरनली ट्रैप होता जा रहा है. सो आई थिंक इट्स डबलिंग डाउन ऑन दैट एज वेल. But yeah, like coming back to global warming and climate change, and these kind of things happens के जो आप scientifically studies और phenomena को link करते हो general understanding के साथ, you can't you can't pretty much predict कि लोग इसको perceive कैसे करेंगे, and then sometimes you need better wording, better explanation. So I think that's how it went.
राइट. सो आई स्टिल थिंक लाइक मुझे इस टर्म से थोड़ा सा प्रॉब्लम है, जो क्लाइमेट चेंज वाली है ना, क्योंकि ये बहुत एक बिनाइन सी टर्म है फॉर समथिंग दैट सीरियस, या जिसे एक कह दूं आपने बेजरर से दो लफ्ज उठाए हैं, उनको मिला दिया है.
Hmm.
चेंज, हाउ वुड समवन टेक चेंज सीरियस? लाइक इसमें कोई किसी किस्म का कैटास्ट्रफी या इस टाइप का कोई वर्ड ऐड करने की जरूरत है इन माय अंडरस्टैंडिंग,
Hmm.
बिकॉज आई थिंक आई डोंट थिंक these words carry enough weight कि ये लोगों के ओपिनियन पे या लोगों की सीरियसनेस पे कोई इम्पैक्ट डालेंगे, स्पेशली जो हमारी पॉलिटिकल लॉट है. इन एनी केस, सो कार्बन की बात हुई. आई probably want to expand on like how carbon has been a contributing factor. Like हम ये बात करते हैं कि कार्बन की वजह से हीट ट्रैप हो रहा है. So I want to get into the, like I'll probably briefly explain what it means. So as more and more carbon is emitted, तो हमारे जो एटमॉस्फेयर है, जो अपर एटमॉस्फेयर है, ट्रोपोस्फेयर की ऊपरली जो आप कह लें सतह है, वहाँ पे कार्बन एक्यूमुलेट होती रहती है ओवर टाइम. और होता यह है कि द सनलाइट गेट्स टू एंटर इनटू द एटमॉस्फेयर, बिकॉज वो डिफरेंट वेवलेंथ पे होती है, बट वो अर्थ की सरफेस पे पड़ने के बाद जब रिफ्लेक्ट होती है, तो इट हैज़ अ डिफरेंट वेवलेंथ, एंड दैट वेवलेंथ कैन नॉट पेनिट्रेट जो कार्बन की लेयर बन गई है. सो
Hmm.
इट बिकम्स लाइक अ वन वे आउट फॉर जो सूरज की एनर्जी है इनटू द अर्थ. सो दैट व्हाट्स कीप्स ट्रैपिंग दिस एयर एंटरिंग टू आवर अर्थ, बिकॉज जमीन पे बेसिकली एनर्जी की सोर्स सिर्फ एक है ना, सारी एनर्जी सूरज से आ रही है, ठीक है. फिर वो एनर्जी गेट्स साइकल्ड बिटवीन डिफरेंट सोर्सेज ओवर एंड ओवर. सो जब हम बात करते हैं कार्बन हीट ट्रैप सिचुएशन की, वो बेसिकली ये है कि कार्बन की एक लेयर बन गई है जिसके अंदर sunlight can enter one way but cannot go back, because the like the carbon presence is so dense in that layer of the atmosphere. um Anyways, moving on. So connecting further to this climate change thing, if we have to go with that, what is your reading of different kind of extreme events that we have been seeing? Whether abhi humne Florida, I think this year has been hit by two hurricanes.
Hmm.
So what is your reading into that, and how does that connect with the climate change in your understanding? Wildfires, droughts, probably. um, yeah, I would like Ali to share his understanding of it, and how, like,
Hmm.
how serious is that, and in what ways is it connected to the climate change?
Okay, sure. सो लाइक एज थोड़ी सी इस पे पहले भी बहस हुई है कि जो क्लाइमेट चेंज है वो इंड्यूस कर रहा है एक्सट्रीम वेदर इवेंट्स को. उसके अंदर आप हरिकेन देख सकते हैं, वाइल्ड फायर्स हैं, ड्राउट्स हैं, और एक्सट्रीम रेन्स भी हैं. तो ये जो सारे के आप यू कैन साइंटिफिकली लिंक ऑल ऑफ दीज इवेंट्स विद राइजिंग टेम्परेचर. और जो हमारा इवन पूरी दुनिया में प्रेसिपिटेशन पैटर्न चेंज हो गया. If you simply go to weather.government, like you will see incident, like just limit yourself to any country. Like most of these websites have option to customize कि आप किस state को देखना चाह रहे हैं. You will see like you will see extreme number of events, or like even उनकी जो growth बढ़ रही है by from starting from 1950 to 2024. आपके मल्टी डेज टॉर्नेडोज आ रहे हैं, आपके hurricanes stronger से stronger होते जा रहे हैं. The recent one was like a perfect example. Even some prediction algorithms were not capable enough to like fully understand the whole phenomena because it was so extreme. It had so much randomness to it as well. अब उसके बाद हीट वेव्स हैं जो कि मल्टी डेज प्रोलॉन्ग हो रही हैं. Those heat waves are hitting countries like Canada, which are generally which has generally very cold climate. एक्सट्रीम रेनफॉल में ये बहुत ज़्यादा अपेरेंट हैं कंट्रीज लाइक पाकिस्तान, जहाँ पे फ्लडिंग हैज़ बिकम लाइक रेगुलर क्लाइमेटिक के, जहाँ पे हर साल एक्सट्रीम रेन होती है कि हमारा सिस्टम उसको अब्जॉर्ब भी नहीं कर पाता क्योंकि हमने कभी इतनी रेन देखी ही नहीं है. And then even if you go to like just close to Pakistan, go to like UAE, Oman, Saudi Arabia, they have been hit hard with extreme rainfalls as well. So those winter calamities are not as apparent, but those like all the calamities which are associated with the rise in temperature, they are much more obvious. So it's very obvious that ये जो सारी की सारी एक्सट्रीम वेदर इवेंट्स हो रहे हैं, ये इनके पीछे ओवरऑल राइज ऑफ टेम्परेचर, राइज ऑफ प्रेसिपिटेशन है. आई थिंक that's pretty much it.
Right. So, Miriam, how have you connected these extreme weather events to the climate change, and what kind of extreme weather events have you experienced yourself?
So, well, in ex well, we talked a lot about today about weather simulations and how human activities are impacting these weathers. Um, आपके पास जो target है वो ये है कि by, well, it's not target, but we are achieving it, कि by 2040 we will hit to the global temperature increase by 1.5%, 1.5 degrees centigrade, which currently is 1.1. Which means कि हमारे पास जो 5 मेजर एक्सट्रीम वेदर हैं, इवेंट्स हैं, वो उनकी अकरेंस इन द एयर ज़्यादा हो जाएगी, which includes आपके पास temperature increase, droughts, and cyclones, rainfall, and snow. So ये इनकी जो occurrence है वो एक साल में काफी and as compared to what we have now will be increased at least twice for all of them. It will become 2x to what we seeing right now. So आपके पास almost 93% of the heat wave events that happened in last 5 to 10 years was shown have a strong correlation with climate change. The same goes for the rainfall events. आपके पास 83% rainfall events total जो observe किए गए उसमें से 68% were due to climate. अब उसमें जो experience as personal experience that I would like to talk about is कि आपके पास जो 2022 की floods हैं, and my hometown was heavily affected.
Yeah.
Our family home was affected. There were days that my family was traveling from Sibbi to Koita and they were trapped because roads were flooded and they couldn't move from one place to another. आपकी transport सारी की सारी पूरा transport system वो हमारे यहाँ क्या कहते हैं निज़ाम धर्म भरम हो गया वो बिल्कुल that we saw. Then you move towards right now in Spain. पिछले पीछे कोई 10 घंटों में 5.5 इंच बारिश हुई है, which is a lot. Or these and it's not even stopping. These flash flooding is not stopping. आपके पास droughts in different areas. और what's interesting is कि कुछ जगहों पे they have experienced droughts and then they have experienced extreme rain, which didn't help the condition. तो इस again हमने we have seen heat waves all through Europe in last couple of years. And like extreme temperatures, not like 25 degrees centigrade that UK was reporting a few days ago, but you could see actually extreme temperatures being reported from France and Italy. And I think in heat wave, we lost a lot of people in interior Sindh, Karachi, and then again you go towards South Punjab. So I think these hit very close to home because we have like we either know people who have been affected or there is an indirect connection. There's not a lot of separation between us and the people who were affected by these things that happened in last couple of years. So yeah, there's I like with the evidence that we have, feel that there is a strong correlation between these extreme weather events and the climate change.
Right. Yeah, talking about the 2022 floods, it was so heat wave in Sindh has been one thing, but the impact of those floods on Sindh was it is quite shameful that it doesn't get mentioned enough. And I think similarly last year, Gwadar saw like massive
Yeah.
downpours.
Yep.
It's a shame that it didn't get mentioned in the mainstream media enough.
There's about
Okay,
$50 billion damages that happened during 2022 flooding.
yeah, yeah. The economic impact of it is one thing, but even like the societal impact, and we'll come back to to the migration bit of it later. Um, okay, so we did mention some extreme weather events here. I'll probably want to briefly go through the science of it again. इसके हार्ट पे जो चीज़ है दैट इज हीट एंड टेम्परेचर सो वेदर और क्लाइमेट itself जो है वो एक बहुत कॉम्प्लेक्स टॉपिक है दैट्स व्हाई the models that simulate those changes are very complicated and complex.
Yeah, parameters involved.
हाँ बट देयर इज लाइक कुछ चीज़ों की जो साइंस है इज प्रिटी स्ट्रेट फॉरवर्ड दैट इज लाइक इट्स बेसिक फिजिक्स के the hotter the air is the more moisture it can absorb. तो हवा में जितना टेम्परेचर ज़्यादा होगा वो उतना ज़्यादा मॉइस्चर एब्जॉर्ब कर सकती है एंड द कैलकुलेशन फॉर दैट इज एवरी 1 degree increase in air temperature will trap 70% more water. दैट्स वाई हम देख रहे हैं कि जैसे जैसे ये टेम्परेचर्स बढ़ रहे हैं तो हमने इंसिडेंट्स देखे हैं कि क्लाउड क्लाउड बर्स्ट्स हो जाते हैं एंड वी सी हैवी डाउनपोर्स जिसके अंदर 15 मिनट के अंदर ही या 5 मिनट के अंदर इन सम केसेस इस तरह की बारिश होती है कि इट गेट्स फ्लडेड एंड इज it basically challenges your current infrastructure.
Yeah,
Forget about the developing world, like even
developed countries.
in yeah developed countries, America, Europe, they are kind of struggling in keeping up with the kind of changes that we are seeing.
Hmm.
um, yeah, so it is directly connected. And then the Florida का episode we saw जहाँ पे एक storm जो है वो within a matter of days जो है वो कैटेगरी 4 कैटेगरी 5 हरिकेन बन जाता है. It is a lot of it is being, again there are multiple factors, but at the heart of it is hotter air that is like becoming this source of added moisture and water that forms all of that. um okay, moving on. So those were the results of what we are seeing. But what's causing all this? What is at the heart of where this is coming from? Let's go through that. So, Ali, what do you think? Where have we gone wrong, जहाँ पे all of a sudden ये जो पिछले 40-50 साल में हम spike देख रहे हैं
Hmm.
in the global temperatures, in your understanding or in your study, what are the contributing factors?
Sure. Okay, so I think we did little bit touch how carbon is to blame. तो आपने like you might have heard a lot के countries pledge कर रहे होते हैं कि how we will be reducing our carbon footprint, because it is quite a known phenomena or understanding कि most of these things are being induced by carbon. But before I go into like specifics of like how all of this is being contributed, I just want to explain a little bit on the type of carbon we like, क्योंकि हम थोड़ी सी एक ये भी अंडरस्टैंडिंग आती है कि कार्बन तो शुरू से हम लाइक प्लांट्स हैं, हम बर्न करते आए हैं, फ्यूल्स निकाल के यूज़ करते आए हैं। सो क्योंकि जैसे पहले बोला कि कुछ अब्जॉर्प्शन, कुछ आपके बफर्स होते हैं जो कि ज़मीन अब्जॉर्ब कर रही थी। अब कार्बन भी थ्री लाइक C12, C13, C14। सो C12 इज सिंपली व्हाट प्लांट लव्स। सो जब आप भी ब्रीथ कर रहे हैं, ब्रीथ आउट कर रहे हैं, एक्सेल कर रहे हैं, तो प्लांट्स प्लांट्स आर क्वाइट कैपेबल टू take that in, transform into oxygen, and then like it was never a problem.
Mhm.
But then the more complex are C13 and C14. C14 is by the way radioactive. तो ओवरऑल अगर आप इमेजिन देखें, C14 कैन कन्वर्ट टू C13 एंड C13 कैन आई थिंक गो टू C12 एज वेल। बट ओवरऑल इफ यू सी, C14 कम होती जा रही है क्योंकि जो आपके जो अबुंडेंस बनती जा रही थी C13 की, एंड दिस इज मोरली विद लाइक ऑल दोस जो हम हमारी बर्निंग्स हो रही हैं, जो हम प्लांट्स को डंप करते हैं, फिर सालों बाद निकालते हैं, फायर करते हैं, सो दैट extends the C13, which is very difficult to cycle. Anyhow, so ये तो थोड़ा सा अंडरस्टैंडिंग है कि कार्बन कैसे प्रॉब्लम है। अब ये कार्बन आ कहाँ से रही है मोस्टली? सो वन ऑफ द मेजर कंट्रीब्यूटर इज फॉसिल फ्यूल्स, जिसमें बर्निंग कोल है, ऑयल है, नेचुरल गैस है। तो ये तो बिगेस्ट सोर्स ऑफ कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड इमिशन है ग्लोबली। और इसकी रिलायंस क्यों बढ़ी? इसकी रिलायंस जब बहुत ज़्यादा इंडस्ट्री, कोई भी डेवलपिंग कंट्रीज में जाएं, लुक अराउंड, गाड़ियाँ कैसे चल रही हैं, इंडस्ट्री कैसे चल रही है, ट्रांजिट कैसे चल रहा है, मोस्टली इट्स बर्निंग फ्यूल विच इज़ emitting कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड। अब ये तो हमारी जनरेशन ऑफ कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड है। उसके साथ जो इसके कंट्रीब्यूटिंग साथ में फैक्टर्स हैं वो डिफॉरेस्टेशन है। डिफॉरेस्टेशन हो गई तो जो कार्बन सिंक से वो आपके खराब हो गए। अब आपकी CO2 एटमॉस्फेयर से एब्जॉर्ब नहीं हो रही। आपने डिफॉरेस्टेशन एग्रीकल्चर या अर्बन डेवलपमेंट के लिए की है, वो अगेन एक अनदर कंट्रीब्यूटर बन रहा है कार्बन डाइऑक्साइड का। उसके साथ जिस तरह की हमारी फूड कंजप्शन की हैबिट्स चेंज हो गई हैं, तो जो एग्रीकल्चर है उसकी मतलब एग्रीकल्चर प्रोड्यूस की डिमांड बहुत बढ़ गई है, उसके लिए लैंड सफिशिएंट नहीं है। देन गोइंग बैक टू डिफॉरेस्टेशन, डिफॉरेस्टेशन करोगे, गोइंग बैक टू not having that capability to absorb that carbon। और ये सारा कुछ क्यों हो रहा है? क्योंकि आपकी एनर्जी नीड्स बहुत ज़्यादा बढ़ गई हैं, और एनर्जी की रिलायंस जो सी है वो आप सिंपली फॉसिल फ्यूल से कर रहे थे। उसके साथ एक और जो फैक्टर मुझे काफ़ी इम्पैक्टफुल लगता है वो प्लास्टिक्स हैं। तो आपकी जो प्रोडक्शन है, जो डिग्रेडेशन लेवल के जो मतलब प्लास्टिक्स हैं, और फिर वो ग्रीन हाउसेज गैसेज निकालते हैं विच लाइक क्रिएट क्लाइमेट जो कि सूटेबल नहीं है आपके बैलेंस को इमिटेट करने के लिए। सो आई थिंक ऑल ऑफ दीज कंट्रीब्यूटिंग फैक्टर आर प्रोड्यूसिंग और जनरेटिंग एन एनवायरनमेंट जिसके अंदर आपके जो CO2 की एमिशन है वो बढ़ती जा रही है, बढ़ती जा रही है। एक तो बढ़ती जा रही है, दूसरी साइड से एब्जॉर्ब नहीं हो रही। सो इट्स अ डबल हैमर इफेक्ट। एक तो हम कार्बन हिस्टोरिकली बहुत ज़्यादा प्रोड्यूस कर रहे हैं। दूसरा, जो आपकी ज़मीन की एबिलिटी थी, कैपेबिलिटी थी कि उस कार्बन को ऑब्ज़ॉर्ब कर पाती, हम वो भी कम करते जा रहे हैं। तो it's a double down effect where
Mhm.
uh, it's quite amplifying the way it's being managed.
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so multiple factors got mentioned there. Mariam, do you want to expand on that or maybe add to it?
Yeah, definitely. I think Ali has done a good job talking about like how these fossil fuels and their energy sources have been a major source. I'm going to talk about where we using these energy sources and how that affecting and where we could do a better job. And I know we have talked a lot about like we have seen media talk a lot about clean energy and producing it through wind or solar or nuclear for the matter of fact, but we haven't seen a lot of people talking about things that we should be avoiding and like reducing just energy consumption as it is, and on the level that actually would matter, not like I understand that using a paper straw is a good idea, but how much impact that paper straw is making, I want to talk a little bit about that. But here I want to mention wars, that in last couple of years we have seen massive wars in both regions. We have seen it between Russia and Ukraine, and now we are seeing in Middle East, between Israel and Palestine, and then overall Lebanon and Iran and everything that's been going on. And there has been a direct impact of carbon emission there, and you can see how these explosives, the transport of the weaponry, your fighter jets, all of these are one of becoming one of the major source of carbon emission. And that's something that we really need to look into. And you can see that the climate activists in last couple of years have started identifying that, and they are one of the biggest activists and advocates for anti-war policies and trying to solve these conflicts on the table, because you see how we are affecting the world on a larger scale. The other thing that I want to mention is that how polarized both areas are. Like if you look at 1% of the richest in the world are producing the 50% of the carbon emission uh, uh, which is equal to the 50% of the poorest part of the world. So that is a huge polarization and imbalance, and that's you see how like your celebrities are taking 5 to 15 minutes flights, which does have a huge carbon footprint. The food consumption that we have talked about, I think we really need to discuss how the food chain works, because there's a lot of talk about how we should not be eating animals, or we shouldn't be eating a lot of seafood. But when you see that food chain, there is actually a documentary on Netflix about how there's one like species of the fish that has been eliminated because people have eaten that, and because of that there's a skip in food chain, and that is causing a lot of climate issues. Then you have plastic. Now that plastic is not just being created, is causing a lot of problem, but it's going into the sea and causing um, problem to the sea uh, uh, vegetation. So you have corals that's been affected, which were the major reason that we have oxygen. So that's been definitely the things that has caused a lot of energy consumption and create a lot of problems. One of the latest thing that I think I've been following this story for an year right now, and I think first time Financial Times and then Guardian and a lot of people have covered it. But there's a study by MIT, and it's been reported by MIT and done by Hugging Face, which is one of the AI startups, that generating one single image using Gen AI consumes as much energy as you need to charge a smartphone. So we really, really need to look into a cleaner energy sources for this, and we also need to see, do we need that kind of sources? There's is using AI in every situation is becoming an overkill? Are there certain things that we can use which could reduce the parameters, which could does not require you to use these big foundation models or big generative AI models? So I think that conversation needs to be done, because we are as we talked in the previous episode, that there is a war right now happening between US and China when it comes to AI. It's a race that's happening, and they are trying to win it by accumulating as much as we energy sources they can get, and that's gonna become that's gonna hit a bottleneck at some point. But that bottleneck, how they're gonna come over that bottleneck, that needs to be more aware and more climate aware, because that's gonna create the kind of problems that we did not perceive far ahead that we should have. Like we were using AI during our thesis, and I remember I used to have like this um, this computer which every time I would be training, and I was using a simple CNN, though it has a lot of parameters because the data I was dealing with was in 4D. But every time I would run it, I would not need to run a radiator in my room. That's how warm it would make my place. In summers, it would not be easy to be in my apartment. So, to I think for me, these are the things that matter, and also uh, I think the major thing I do feel that the richer part of the world needs to focus on how they are affecting the poorer part of the world more by their consumption patterns.
Right. Very interesting. Yeah. GPUs are very power intensive. I'll probably add to two bits here. One, the Chart GPT search takes 10x the amount of power compared to a
Google search.
Google search. So that's there. Um, the other thing is, and I know I could get some flack for it, is let me think how to. Okay, so I will explain it in. I'll try to make it simple, but let's say जमीन जो है ना, अंडरस्टैंडिंग के लिए जमीन का जो टोटल रकबा है वो 100 एकड़ है। तो उस 100 एकड़ में से तकरीबन कोई 70 एकड़ जो है ना वो पानी है, पीछे
Hmm.
बच जाता है 30 एकड़। उस 30 एकड़ में से 15 एकड़ जो है वो हम एग्रीकल्चर के लिए यूज करते हैं। उस 15 एकड़ में से 3 एकड़ जो है वो हम डायरेक्ट अपनी कंजम्पशन के लिए यूज करते हैं, लाइक वेजिटेबल्स एंड स्टफ, वी ग्रो दैट एंड वी कंज्यूम दैट।
Hmm.
12 एकड़ हम यूज करते हैं फॉर एनिमल एग्रीकल्चर। उस बारह
Livestock.
एकड़ के ऊपर हम जानवर पालने के लिए ग्रो करते हैं, लाइक बेसिकली द पास्चर लैंड, जहाँ पे जानवर के लिए आप उसके एनिमल ग्रोथ के लिए, और यू कैन लुक अप द साइज ऑफ दिस इंडस्ट्री। सो जब कोई बंदा ये बोलता है कि cows are contributing to the
Methane.
to the methane emission, and methane by the way is adds has like a 50 times more footprint than regular carbon, right? So
Hmm.
it's like already a multiplied effect. तो वो जो बेसिकली 12 एकड़ है उसमें वी यूज अ टन ऑफ ammonia and fertilizer that contributes to emissions, और फिर उसके बाद और उसका नेट गेन क्या है? नेट गेन ये है कि हम उस लैंड के ऊपर ज़्यादा कैलोरीज ग्रो कर सकते हैं, डायरेक्टली कंज्यूम कर सकते हैं, वी कैन गेट मोर कैलोरीज आउट ऑफ दैट लैंड। बट व्हाट वी डू इज हम उन कैलोरीज को जो है वो लेस अमाउंट ऑफ कैलोरीज में कन्वर्ट करते हैं, सो द अमाउंट ऑफ कैलोरीज यू गेट आउट ऑफ अ काउ इज मच लेस देन दी उसकी इनपुट कैलोरीज जो आपने उसको दी हैं इन द फॉर्म ऑफ जो भी आपने ग्रो किया है, चारा या वट एवर. सो आई नो इट्स लाइक अ वेरी लोडेड टॉपिक, और इसके ऊपर लोग जो हैं वो बहुत ज़्यादा अटैक शुरू कर देते हैं कि आई एम नॉट सेइंग कि आप मीट ना खाएं, for sure, if someone
Yeah, one
likes it.
argument is meat is just not a source of calories.
Yeah, whatever,
Like,
you want to taste too, right?
no,
No,
you like it has other benefits which plants don't, like just
yes.
the plant.
Yes,
So
yeah,
again,
so I'm not saying that the meat is absolutely needs to be replaced with plants. What I'm saying is, one, maybe we need to limit it in some way. Two, that that manufactured meat is realized now, right? Meat can be manufactured. I know it doesn't taste as good as regular meat, so as long as उसका टेस्ट इम्प्रूव नहीं कर लेते साइंस और बिजनेसेस, यू आर अलाउड टू हैव योर स्टेक. बट आई होप it gets realized someday and we can move on to like different sources of meat, would be
but
my way
don't you
of putting it.
think this has to be based on numbers? Like, like is it really that impactful area के जिसकी वजह से like there is no way we can fix climate change or solve climate change without specifically, yeah, I think in my mind, and again no offense to like the whole discussion, obviously we are brainstorming here, but in my mind this is one of those like straw story as you said. Yeah, like अब होता क्या है generally what happens कि कोई प्रॉब्लम आती है, usually politicians they tend towards easy fixes which doesn't add much value. होता वो क्यों है? Because they care much more about optics. I was doing my master's 2 years ago, and it was heavily cited in academia that bike lanes are not like on already established infrastructure. Bike lane doesn't add much. 5 years ago, आप किसी से बात करके देखो अर्बन सिटीज में कि बाइक लेन्स नहीं होनी चाहिए, like on the roads which are already congested, people would go eat you.
Hmm.
तो अब now you might have seen कि ओंटारियो में वो इस चीज़ को रिमूव कर रहे हैं. Again, the same thing with the carbon footprint. I think politician, and I'm not rejecting this phenomenon के और denying it के हमारी जो food consumption की habits हैं, like especially with restaurant culture के जहाँ पे जाके food waste बहुत ज़्यादा है, like not eating meat might not just be problem in itself. The way we consume meat and the way fast food industry has amplified these habits, I think that also is very impactful. So what I'm trying to say is that we should honestly look into contributing factors कि ये और हम कार्बन डायरेक्टली तो निमिट नहीं कर रहे, हम like mainly we are doing carbon dioxide. उसको कैसे कम किया जा सकता है? What are the alternate source of energies? And then because those are governmental like government level things which governments can do right away, and then look into personal habits of people, like educate them, transition them from like, to be very honest, if you just go to someone and say, oh, start eating more plants and stop eating less meat because we need to fix climate, you're gonna have more climate deniers because now you are attacking my state. So there goes that argument as well.
Yeah, so that's why
So
I'm
people
not
people
attacking anyone's
yeah.
stake.
I just
As
want to add to what Ali was saying is the reason I think we need to look into the major contributor is no, I was just checking it right now. The largest number of vegetarians are in India,
Hmm.
and in
India
last
is
2 years,
third producer of CO2,
yeah,
third
and
largest
it
producer of
yeah,
CO2.
and in last three
Because they're
years,
also one of the biggest
the
exporters of meat.
yeah, but their
Brazil as
largest
well, but they are
contributor
not in top
is
10.
yeah, but their
Brazil is
largest
even
contributor is
biggest. Brazil is even
transport.
largest exporter, but they are, I think, I have a list here. They are number 14.
Yeah,
So
and
there
they
are there are going to be many confounding
yeah,
variables.
and their reason, a largest contributor to their carbon emission is transport in India. So yeah, I think there has to be correlations need to be found globally, and there need to be correlations need to be found country by country as well to combat this.
Absolutely. Uh, yeah, the biggest contributor to emissions is, and I think 80% is fossil fuel, but it gets consumed in different ways. Like,
Yes,
what is the transport footprint of all these restaurant chains, right? That are solely running because they sell a steak or something, right? Or McDonald's sell a beef burger, right? The kind of transport network that they have to run, so it's not just like limited to them
Yeah,
growing on itna
yeah,
bada land and
there
then
are
using fertilizers.
underlying
Uska jo pura
underlying
chain
contributing
hai
factors.
is like huge. Anyways, without attacking anyone's stake, let's move on. So we discussed the causes of it. We briefly touched on this before. Was the its direct impacts on Pakistan and the rest of the developing world. I know we briefly touched it. Do you want to add anything to it, or
Just a
further
little bit,
expand it?
yeah. Just a little bit. I think आई थिंक जो पाकिस्तान की जियोग्राफिकल लोकेशन है और जो पाकिस्तान की इकोनॉमिकल सिचुएशन है it makes it one of the most vulnerable country for climate change disasters. Reason being that by 2050 researchers are predicting that Pakistan will lose its 18 to 20% of GDP.
GDP.
So I think हमारे like
Just from
Pakistan, let
climate
alone
change.
just from climate
Yes,
change,
just
just
from
one.
Mhm.
climate change.
So just imagine like if apart from climate change, Pakistan is already struggling on economical front. अब उसके उस साथ आप 18 to 20% GDP just because आप lose कर दें just because of climate change.
Mhm.
And that's not just limited to economical disaster. लोगों के जो सोशो इकोनॉमिक फैक्टर्स हैं, जो स्टेबिलिटी फैक्टर्स हैं, जो हमारी लैंड जो इनहेबिटेबल लैंड हमारी, क्योंकि पाकिस्तान इज मेनली एन एग्रीकल्चर स्टेट. जब आपका फ्लडिंग होगी, यू गोना लाइक एवरी, ये हमने बड़ा क्लोजली देखा है कि ओ इस साल गंदम की पैदावार कम होगी, दूसरी फसल की पैदावार कम होगी बिकॉज वी हैड flooding, we had less area to cultivate stuff. So like that's impacting your food security, that's impacting your food export. So लोगों के overall जो lifestyle है, जो quality of life है, वो reduce होगी. And then people, and I think we're going to cover that as well, then people will start looking to move out of Pakistan because it's not going to be an inhabitable country. एयर एक और बहुत इम्पोर्टेंट चीज़ है कि जिसमें लोगों की एयर क्वालिटी पाकिस्तान में इट्स नॉट आइडियल. Go to a green lush city like Islamabad, and you will still feel those numbers ridiculous as you compare to where we are living right now. So, and that's something which no one can escape. Like maybe while like if you are quite rich in Pakistan, you can get away with like indoor air quality. You can get away with like food security and stuff like that. But you need to go out, and like लोगों के health related issues are directly linked with climate change.
Yeah.
So it's not a matter of just rising temperature which might hit you down 20 years, 30 years. Pakistan is going through climate disaster as we are talking.
Mhm.
And that makes it very serious for Pakistanis, public, as well as like government itself to think के
Mhm.
अगर हमने पाकिस्तान को बचाना है like from all of those perspectives, क्योंकि आप एक बड़े vulnerable standpoint पे खड़े हैं, और you should be doing as much as you can. तो हमारे तो अभी मैं as I was preparing for this episode, I was just going through NCCP report, and it was full of crap, like just a bloated report with no substantial uh, I would say, substantial steps or recommendations which will
Hmm.
make an impact. Just like a theoretical paper, just like a conversation which will lead to nowhere.
सो
So I think that needs to
ये
be.
रिपोर्ट किसकी तरफ से?
So ये NCCP report है National Climate Change Policy Islamabad, which was published in October 2021,
ओके.
and it's a 59 pages long report prepared by government of Pakistan.
Hmm.
Uh, so I didn't like there are like obviously few risk factors which they
Hmm.
mention, water conservation strategies, but legislatively it doesn't offer anything. It's just reiterating what we already know, what or at least what people working on climate change they already know.
Right, right.
So that, to be very honest, I used to think, oh, like itna major issue have there must be some understanding there, but to be honest, I was quite sad to read that it's nowhere it's nowhere even close to finding a solution. And I think Pakistan needs a very customized solution to its problem. Like
Hmm.
if you're just relying, oh, like the world will think of a solution because it's a global phenomena. No, uh, Canada might be okay for next 20, 30 years. You might have heard, okay, oh, we already have quite a winter climate. We people in Edmonton or Alberta might be good for another 50, 60 years. Pakistan is need a solution right now.
So it's more urgent for Pakistan.
Yeah,
Uh,
I think it's point of survival.
yeah, yeah. Sad, but all truth there. Mariam?
So I think I agree with Ali. जो urgency हमारी side पर है, and the reason we do need a customized solution is क्योंकि हमारी जो geographical और terrain situation है वो just काफी unique है. Other than both hemisphere, this is the only place that have that kind of glaciers. और जिस तरह की चीजें हम experience कर रहे हैं वो मतलब हम almost सारे extreme weather events face कर रहे हैं right now. Um, and there is gonna be huge problems in next couple of years. But even right now, जो आपकी दोनों floodings हुई हैं 2022 वाली और 2024 वाली, you could see the numbers of people being affected. Yes, economically, socially, but also according to current reports, there are 50 million people in Pakistan who are going through mental health issues, and that will be increased due to because of climate. And just to put it in a perspective, हमारी total आबादी 250 million है. So this
Hmm.
is a huge number,
People, yeah.
and there is not a lot of awareness, but this is a climate is playing a huge role into it. Climate plays a huge role in your just generally on your moods and your habits, and आपके पास सोशो इकोनॉमिकली हम कोई इतना अच्छा हमारी सिचुएशन ऑलरेडी नहीं है. People are economically suffering, and the thing with the climate is it you could be it's a denier or you could be rich, but if you're in a country like Pakistan, you're going through it at the same time. आपके पास again the smoke and all of this, and we have seen the numbers this year. Um, the worst air quality index was in Lahore a couple of days ago, and it was about 707. And I think the second highest was in Delhi, which was around 300 something.
Yeah, and it's
That's,
been very consistent every year.
yeah. And in this year's report said that it's gonna decrease. If you live for 1 year in Lahore, it's gonna decrease 7 years in your life. So that means that आपकी जो underlying diseases हैं, they're gonna have a huge impact. Like disease like COVID, that is a respiratory disease. अगर आपके lungs already कमजोर हैं and you get a COVID, how much is gonna affect you? It might
Hmm.
not affect somebody now because with all the vaccines and everything, if you have a good air quality, you'll be fine. But this kind of air quality is not even like we don't even have good masks to combat that. So
Yeah.
that I think is part, and as Ali said, there's not much being done. I was reading this like there's this quote somebody shared on Twitter the other day, and I think that sums up what Ali was saying, is that we need to stop asking our politicians if they believe in climate change and start asking them what they're going to do about it, because
Mhm.
it's science, it's not Santa Claus.
Yeah.
They really need to do something about it, and there's an urgency to it. We like the things that's going to happen in the next couple of years. I don't think we're ready for it, and I don't think we have an idea of the severity of it. And we keep hearing our politicians bickering between each other and comparing our situation with the rains in Middle East or rain in US and Europe. They have infrastructure, and let's be very honest here, they have money. They will figure out something or other. We don't. And if we are not going to get to a point where we actually take strong actions, we might be seeing a lot of disaster coming our way.
Yeah, and I think it's very unfair for Pakistan going through all of these disasters, and because considering that we are not even in top 20
Contributors.
Yeah,
so, but like it's a no-brainer to say like it's an unfair equation for Pakistan. That's why, and we are not top contributor, but we are being hit massively. This this requires an urgent international cooperation. Like I'm sure there must be other examples like Pakistan.
yeah,
एक तो हम hardly hit हो रहे हैं, that's amplifying our inability to do enough so that we come out of that equation. So this puts quite a heavy obligation on first world countries who have like a very larger footprint as compared to Pakistan and all the other countries.
Right.
I agree.
Yeah, yeah, it's beyond hazardous. Last week Lahore hit an air quality index of 700 plus, and
Yeah,
something like
and as a reference, what's here in Toronto?
uh I think it's a different scale that we use here, but I think it's in around 50 or something, not more than
Yeah,
that. So
yeah, that's my
three
understanding as well.
yeah, 300 is hazardous. So we are
Yeah,
at Lahore hit like
We are
700.
beyond that.
yeah.
Yeah, Lahore and Delhi, they both hit 700. The other thing that I want to add is um, there are rising sea levels. It will be a problem for coastal areas, and for record, I think well
We
over
have quite a big.
50% population globally lives near the coast. So if you have seen videos of Miami में आज के दिन भी जो है वो पानी आ जाता है सिटी के अंदर, और लाइक घुटनों तक आपको पानी वहां पे मिलेगा, ये आज के दिन की बात है. तो
Mhm.
जस्ट इमेजिन एज वी
As it
move
grows.
forward, the water level is getting higher and higher. Yeah, so serious problems there. We briefly touched पाकिस्तान में जो recent floods की situation थी, and that led to migration for some of the people, a lot of the people actually. And like, do we want to add to that, if we have seen such a trend globally, or are there examples elsewhere where the similar kinds of things are happening?
There's a literature which indicates by 2050, climate change may displace 143 million people in global south. The reason they were studying global south is because they are more hit, they have more vulnerability for migration, and that
Mm-hmm.
migration is going to be driven by rising temperature, water issues, or extreme weather conditions. And then the ultimate effect these countries are going to have, like
Mm-hmm.
the economical effect these countries are going to have due to climate change. We can cite this paper for listeners.
Yeah, I'll
I
add
think
it.
it's yeah. But
Okay.
143 million people by 2050, I think it's a huge number.
It's a
So
huge
just
number.
imagine, even for the countries where they will be moving,
Mm-hmm.
I think Immigration is quite a topic itself. उसके भी कुछ challenges हैं because the other countries are not capable enough to maybe accommodate this many number of people.
Okay. Mariam, you wanna add to it?
I think I've gone through the same report, and it's. I think it's again, it's the study of how global South will be affected, um, and it's gonna be it will become an epidemic. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and and as everything that when you know there are resources somewhere else, people will migrate, and the global north will have to deal with it, and
Mm-hmm.
will have to figure out a way to accommodate these immigrants. There's actually a study which has done some correlation and try to figure out that how economical conditions would improve, and how the immigrants due to how much a chance of somebody becoming a climate refugee, and there's a bigger chance of anyone becoming a millionaire, like anyone becoming a climate refugee than becoming a millionaire right now.
Mm-hmm.
And that is in a
Yeah.
hindsight, it's a big problem, because there is not going to be a lot of economical improvement, especially in the global south, which is a poorer part of it. But there would be chances of anybody becoming a climate refugee. So yeah, I think that is, we saw those patterns during flooding, and we gonna keep seeing these patterns with heat and everything. And I've like the first hand experience, I think I never thought that a heat can make you feel like your heart's gonna stop. That was in Egypt. Like I felt like my heart will stop with the heat. And if that kind of condition will happen with people with underlying heart disease and high blood
Yeah.
pressure, it's gonna be very problematic.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Let's keep the train moving. We are moving towards the end. So we have discussed the problems and the causes of it. Let's turn to what are the possible remedies for this. I don't know. I think it's a global problem that everyone is trying to find a solution to, and the solution probably has to be just. I mean, it will be unfair at this point that you turn to these developing countries and all of a sudden ask them to
Ask
just,
them.
yeah,
Yeah.
you cannot take away their right of development when
Yeah.
Yeah.
they haven't been the major contributors to the emissions. The American, the Europeans, the Chinese of the world, they have been the major contributors. China even today has like 50% of their energy comes from coal. So
Yeah.
coal is among the energy sources, coal is the has the worst carbon footprint.
Mm.
Um, so, what do you think are the solutions, and uh, what hopes can we attach with the global community or the scientific community? Ali, you wanna take a stab at it?
Yeah, sure. Okay, first of all, disclaimer. I think the answer to this question might be bigger than us, but obviously we can touch an outline. But उससे पहले, I was looking at like the top countries which are producing most carbon dioxide. China, United States, India, Russia, Japan, Indonesia, Iran, Germany, South Korea, and Saudi Arabia are top 10. And I just want to briefly touch ke unka, because we have discussed ke how serious the problem is. So we want to see if these countries have shown any change in their policies. So China has negative 0.39% year to year change. So that means they have reduced a little bit of their emission. And also going to mention that China has most number of nuclear power plants under development.
Mhm.
So this change will be quite significant in coming years, and nuclear power plants have quite like 5 to 6 years of like a turnaround time. So US second number, so year-to-year change is 1.78%. India is 6.5%. Russia is negative 1.22. Japan is 0.65. Indonesia is 13.14%. Iran is 1.27, Germany is negative 0.84, South Korea is negative 1.15, Saudi Arabia is positive 2.93. So other than 3 4 countries, we don't have a solution, right? So or either we don't care, we simply don't care. Countries like Brazil are, I would say, outlier with like negative 7.3%. So I think this gives us a snapshot of what's happening around the world. So at this point, what we can really do when like even government seems to not have, and so for a very specific problem where a very specific example where we are, I think Canada is 3.5%. So even with like with much lesser reliance on fossil fuel,
Mhm.
it's still quite a problem.
Mhm.
So I think that's why it's very difficult to see the solution.
Mhm.
But if somebody gives me this chance, like what's an high level policy which should be followed, I think without any explanation, we need renewable energy transition, and
Mhm.
this should be like we should be much more, I would say, open to it. I
Mhm.
just want to give one particular example to my industry, nuclear. Like, just imagine we lost these 20, 30 years of nuclear interest because some incidents happen. After 2011 Fukushima incident, politicians were quite hesitant to invest.
Mhm.
अब जब energy demands with like AI, और ये हमने लास्ट एपिसोड में कवर भी किया है, with like increasing demand from AI, nuclear has become like a new darling for all of those energy hungry companies
Mhm.
and even the countries.
Mhm.
Solar is one good example. Wind is another. So I think the countries should look into what suits them,
Mhm.
and they should be supported. Now, as you've said, K, we shouldn't, like, those developing countries have biggest urge to have more development. That development is gonna consume more energy. So there should be a program to help those countries to transition while developing. They should be able to transition to those renewable energies. For example, I think it would be ideal to for countries like Pakistan. There is a good chance for solar and nuclear as well. So they should have those capabilities. So once we have done renewable energy transition, or while we are doing it, I think, and as you mentioned, without like apart from the state joke, I think sustainable agriculture is one thing the policymaker should be thinking, how efficient agriculture can be and how it can help to overall decrease the carbon footprint,
Mhm.
and then and all of that requires like a very coordinated effort from international communities. And I think we saw some of that during, I think, last year, COP 28, when like all those major economies met in Dubai. They discuss carbon emission. They discuss they made pledges how they're gonna. But again, those efforts were quite limited to top, and they need to think. They need to realize that they alone cannot solve this problem. So those other developing countries which are unable to do at their own, they should be helped.
Mhm.
And I think last, and especially very relevant to Pakistan, awareness is very, very, very important.
Got it.
People need to, and without attacking them, they need to be educated. Eh, it's not gonna be matter of just having 1 or 2 more Celsius points on your thermometer.
Mhm.
It's much more than that, and I'm glad that we are doing a little bit contribution towards that. So I think that's my piece.
Awesome. Right. So I think we should take example from the Montreal Protocol, what we did जब ओजोन की डिप्लीशन हमने फाइंड आउट किया 70s में कि ओजोन लेयर जो है वो डैमेज हो रही है, और ozone protects us from ultraviolet radiations which can cause cancer. We figured that out. We got on board, like 30, 40 countries got together, and we acted on it in a way that probably wasn't seen before or hasn't been seen since then. And the result of that is कि वो ओजोन की जो that ozone hole is repairing itself. So a very good example there. Maybe इस वक्त का जो problem है is a lot more serious, but still I think the ability of people to get together and figure out things has we have seen examples of it. I hope it does materialize in this case. So what do you think, Mariam? What are some of the remedies that we can look out for?
I think solutions are being discussed, but what's missing is the legally binding piece of legislation. And UK recently become one of the first major economy to pass net zero emission law, and they are targeting that by the I think 2040 2050, they want to reduce their carbon emission level to what it was back in 1990.
Hmm.
And they have seen that in their own territories, which is very interesting thing to say, but their own territories, they have reduced the carbon emission in
Hmm.
last 1 year. Do though they do run businesses in other territories, and that do contribute to a lot of carbon emission in especially in the global south, but that's something they've been trying to do. Their goal is by 2030 it's going to reduce by 68%. So the idea is to go towards more cleaner energy, and if you look at their budgeting, they have reduced the carbon budget for the fossil fuels. So energy sector budget has been reduced, and they are trying to work towards hydrogen production, and they are trying to expand into cleaner renewable energy sector, and that's one thing that we need to hit to that target all over the world, not just in one place, as we have talked about how much it contributes. um, I think I do agree with Ali that we need to run awareness campaigns in Pakistan. We need to educate people. I remember back when we were growing up, we used to have, I don't know how much impact that it made, but I think it would have a little bit more impact now. But we used to have this cartoon running on STN called Captain Planet, and it was talking about climate change and waste problems even at that point. And I think that kind of awareness on the like early education is needed, so we could reduce those problems, and that's going to be a root level addressing of this problem. And this problem is not going to be solved with a patch solution. It's not a short term solution we can give it and be like, okay, we're going to do it for next few days and it's going to be done. So I think there needs to be educational campaigns need to be done. I think there were two. What comes to my mind is I don't know if you remember or not, but UN and World Bank did this cartoon series called Mina. And there were this animation where
Yeah.
this girl would go, and it was about like childcare,
Oh yeah, yeah,
reproduction,
yeah.
health, and um, uh, like just generally domestic issues in global south. And I think we need something like that, because that did address, I still remember certain episodes and it would come to my mind. It was had such a catchy stories and
Yeah.
everything, and I think we need
Yeah, I
to
think it
have
was very
something
well
like that.
thought. Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we really would this would definitely help remove the problem and understand what it is. Um, Other than that, I think again it's also global north's responsibility. I think the people who are emitting more, like who have more carbon emissions, should contribute more towards the recovering recovery of the countries that's being affected. I think that should be budgeted in that way. I think there's been conferences happening, but as Ali has put down the facts, not much has been done, and we know how much they contributed in the last floods either. So we really need to think our policies again. And I don't have a solution which can be given to you and me and be like, okay, we're gonna do something like this from tomorrow, um, and it will fix things. But yeah, maybe just close your tab when you're brushing your teeth. But I don't know. I honestly I can't think of that one act on a personal level that could fix it. Yeah, there would be collective habits that could help, but it needs a bigger solution.
Right. Awesome. Yeah. So I think I still think something like we need to try to replicate Montreal Protocol, Paris Agreement. We should move forward with that. Uh, I know we had a clown of a president in United States, the first country that it became to walk away from Paris Agreement. What a stupidity that was, and we are just 4 days away from a possibility of it happening all over again. Um,
Yeah, and I think without countries like US, it's
It
quite
would be really
impossible to
hard.
tackle
Yeah.
it. Yeah,
yeah. I think at this point, like out of all the countries that the levels that they commit for, I think only Gambia from Africa have met their pledges. All
Yeah.
the countries are falling short, and falling
and that's
short
telling.
falling short by a margin, and especially this AI boom. I don't. I just fear that there is just a lot of money on the table that they will probably not want to leave behind. So I think they are just gonna go full throttle
Yeah,
on that.
but I think that impact which climate change is gonna have on economy, that might, because it's quite significant, like almost
Yeah.
20% even for US as well.
Mhm.
That might make them think about it.
Yeah,
Yeah, definitely. I think it's gonna get to a correlation of it
but it
because China
depends.
started acting because of it.
Yeah, but it
Yeah,
depends when will the realization come, right?
true.
Like
True.
it might already be too late. I think there is a likelihood of technology solving it. There is a huge community who believes that, and by technology I do not mean carbon capture. I know it's not scalable and there are a lot of problems with
Yeah,
that.
but all of those solutions are gonna demand behavioral changes, policy changes. So I think that's where the intent will come. Intent has
Possibly.
to come.
Yeah, unless we crack like a nuclear fusion or something. Like if we get abundance of cheap energy, I think that will open a lot of doors for us, जो कि हम अभी assume नहीं कर सकते. But okay, that I believe is a wrap. Unless you guys want to add anything, let's close this. And it was great talking to you two, and we will get to meet you guys next week. Thank you. Thanks, both
Yes.
of you.